Hello, I want to welcome you all to our virtual coffee and conversation group here on The Power of Our Story. The Power of Our Story is a community where veterans, first responders, and all protectors can connect, share their experiences, and heal together. We also invite caring bridge builders to the conversation. And today we are back with Richard Sprunger. He is a 15-year Navy SEAL veteran. And like he shares, he needed to do a safer job, so he went into firefighting. And he is finishing his 24th year. He's going to be moving on to 25 years soon. So anyway, we always get so much insight and depth from these calls. So Richard, it's great to be here. Welcome.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks again to the Power of Our Story for putting this on for us. And it's funny you say that. July is actually my anniversary year, so I will have completed 24 years of service this year. This July, the I think it's July 20th is the anniversary date. So it's kind of crazy, you know. But like you said, and for time's sake, I'll do my little intro briefly. First, good to see everybody. Appreciate everybody spending your afternoon with me. I feel honored and grateful that you chose to show up and listen to me and my story, and hopefully my story can help and my insights or perspectives, which is the topic today's perspective, might actually have a positive impact on everybody. So for me, my journey started basically December 8th, 1982. And I've told the story before, so I'll keep it brief today, but that was my first encounter with trauma. And I was waiting on the couch to go roller skating with the local roller skating group. But my dad had to come home to take me, and dad never came home. And that was the day he was taken from us by a drunk driver. And unbeknownst to me, that put me on a long 20, 30-year quest of actually trying to make a dead man proud, which ironically, as we all know, you can't do that and you don't have to. But during that journey, I went into hyperachieving, overachieving. Everything had to be over the top. It led me into the military. It couldn't just be active duty. I had to do something stupid, something crazy, something over the top, something more. That led me into becoming the medic. And my whole family grew up in the volunteer department. They were all medics. So I had to do that. And then how could I serve? And my thought was I wanted to be a medic with the toughest guys on the planet. I wanted to be a medic with the SEAL team, but you can't just be a medic with the SEAL teams. Like you can be a medic with the Marines and not be a Marine. But if you want to be a medic with the SEAL team, you have to be a SEAL. So that was my motivation for getting through training. I successfully did that. I did get rolled back and didn't graduate with my class because I collapsed both of my lungs. That's a whole nother story. But I was able to successfully graduate and have a pretty good career, I think, and multiple deployments. Ended up doing 5 deployments, multiple injuries. As you said, I had to face some decisions that I couldn't be a SEAL anymore. What do you want to do? And I chose to not go to the fleet, as they say, and be a regular sailor. I chose to take an alternative path and became a firefighter. And as we just discussed, this month is the end of my 24th year. It's been two amazing walks, but they've both been filled with traumas, injuries, and chaos. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit here today is presence and perspective. I don't know how often we think about presence or perspective, but what does presence mean to you guys? There's only three of us here, so each one of you kind of give me a quick input. What do you think presence means?
The ability to be in the moment,
What do you mean by in the moment?
aware of being able to be aware both of kind of the social and environmental elements with which you're experiencing at the time.
Okay.
So, that's and all of those things have an impact on you, and they they affect your um, emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff at the same time.
Okay. How about you, Sean? I know you started to say something.
Oh, so I guess when I when I hear presence, I think two different. I actually kind of go to similar to what Jim said, being mindful, being in present in the moment, like um, being there, especially with somebody neurodivergent, ADHD, right? I have an easy tendency to be thinking of 8 million things at the same time and forgetting potentially where I'm at and what I'm doing. Um, so that's presence, being here with you guys and focusing on your stories. Um, but also, I think uh, when I hear presence, sometimes I think about when somebody walks in the room, like their presence, right? How they carry themselves. You can sometimes you can just get a feeling of somebody's presence, like who they are as a person, just by the way they carry themselves.
I appreciate that. And then, Sarah, what would your input be?
I think when I think of presence or me being present, I think about really connecting to the person, what they're saying, what they're feeling, kind of seeing things through their lens. And I feel like that is a way that I can be present for them where they really feel like I see them, I hear them. It's not my opinion or judgment. It's really sitting in their shoes and responding accordingly.
That's beautiful. That's the first time I think I've heard somebody use the definition of presence of not only being with them, but being with them and potentially looking through their eyes. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But anyone that's been in the military and the fire service and those higher chaotic environments, presence is probably the thing we struggle with the most. Would you agree, Jim? Would you agree, Sean? And then Sarah, I know that you've had some traumatic incidents in your life, but I don't know that you've ever been in a career that was basically evolved around chaos.
Raising
So
4 boys, that besides for
yeah,
that, no, I have
that's
not.
oh no, you're right. You're right there. Um, what I used to think presence was just being there. And a lot of the men that I work with and a lot of the men that I coach say, I don't know what she wants. I'm there. I don't know what she wants. I come home. But the reality is their body comes home. Their body is there. They're not there. I remember when I was going through the fire training, going through my paramedic training, we were at a dance recital for my daughter, and my wife reached over and touched my arm. And I looked at her and she goes, "What are you doing? Where are you right now?" And my response was, "I'm running a cardiac arrest in my head right now because I have a test tomorrow." So I was physically in the room, but I was not there. So if I asked you, what do you think is more important, presence or perspective? I'm curious what you would say. And the reason I ask that is most of us have been taught to change our perspective, change your life. You know, just think happier thoughts, view things differently, change your perspective, change your life. And I used to kind of believe that after all my time in the military and as a firefighter, as a SEAL, I've truly come to believe that I think that presence comes first because you can't change the meaning. You can't change the meaning of a moment you've never fully experienced. If you don't fully experience it, it doesn't matter what your perspective is, you're not there. And that kind of hit me. Viktor Frankl said that between stimulus and response, that's where your power truly lies. Your power, right, is in your response. In that space is the millionaire moment. And if you're not present, you miss that space. And for all of us that have served in one way or the other, law enforcement, fire service, military, um, we lose that moment so many times because we're not allowed to take the time to take a pause to enjoy that space. Because if we do, often bad things happen. So we process like this. and we don't really have time to take the information in that we want to take in, you know. So that space, if we could replace that space with the term presence and learn to be fully present, look at somebody when they're talking and literally look at them and turn your mind off and see what they're saying. Because the irony in all of this, and I'm pretty sure that Sean and Jim can attest to this as well, it was easier to be present overseas and in the fire service to stay calm under pressure, in the middle of the chaos. It could have 7 apparatus on fire, and I'm like completely calm and I can do my job. We're getting ready to jump out of a C-130 and it's a rainstorm. It's crazy. And I'm fully present and calm and I can do my job. I had a chief one time said something to me. It was a big structure fire we had. And he couldn't fathom the report that he was getting from the guys inside, because the guys inside were telling him, we've got smoke on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floor. We've got smoke coming out of the laundry chute. The fire alarms are going off in the basement, and we got smoke in the basement. And he's looking at this building and it's pristine. There's nothing. You can't see anything, you know? And it hit me that that's my nervous system. You look at it, looks like it's composed. I look like success on paper. We all look like we've got it together on paper. But inside, there's a chaos that runs. That if we can't get to some sort of regulation and slow down, life will slow us down. It has a way of doing that to us, you know. So I was present physically, but when I came home, that's when the real struggle happened. To become emotionally present, the people I love the most. I could be physically in the room, but mentally I was somewhere else, like I told you in that dance story. And until we can make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life and we will call it fate. We have to realize why we're not being present and figure out how to come back to being present. So, what stories are you quietly telling yourself sometimes that are running your life and you don't even realize it? What chaoses are you expecting to happen that keep you from being present? For me, the takeaway was this: our presence allows us to recognize our own story, and perspective allows us to rewrite it. How we look at what we're experiencing, we can change that narrative in our own head. We can calm that chaos and we can be there. The other issue we have with presence is, and I had a counselor tell me this once, he asked me, he goes, whose perspective are you looking through? And that hit me, because when you've got a loving wife at home and 2 young kids and they're bringing things to you that are traumatic to them. I saw a dog get hit by a car today, and I'm thinking, I saw a 3-year-old get run over by a bus today. That's a little bit different. So your dog and your car aren't registering in my head, right? But if I'm looking at their thoughts, their concerns, their worries through my perspective as a SEAL and a firefighter, there's no empathy, there's no presence, there's no seeing it through their eyes, is there, Sarah? Because I'm looking at my experience, you know. So the greatest gift we can give another person isn't solutions and advice. It's our presence. And more importantly than our presence, I like to say our presence and our attention. Our attention is the most valuable gift we can give, because you can be present in the room and not really there. But if you're giving attention, boy, you can be there. Boy, you can just be there. And I guarantee you that that's the super glue of every relationship. And if you want closeness in your relationship, look at your presence, look at your attention, and look at the perspective you're looking through. If you can change those 3 things, you can have the closest relationship you could ever have with anybody you wanted. So with that said, I'm curious, and I want to open it up because I do have to leave a little early today. What if what you're looking for and waiting for is in a new perspective? What if it's just learning how to be present? How could presence change your life?
Was that directed at me?
No, it's directed to anybody. It was directed
Okay.
to anybody. How could presence change your life? How have you not been present? And when could have you been present had a different outcome for you?
I think
So
go ahead.
no, you first, Joe.
I mean, I think it's easy in this environment, today, right, to be distracted. Um, whether you're talking about device distraction or whatever, but even just the fast pace of the world, right? And I think for me, it's first the ability to be present with yourself, um, and that's being able to take take the time that you need to clear the fog, to clear the mind, to get to like, okay, I've purged all this nonsense from overnight or whatever, and now that I can be present with myself, now I can start to be present with other people.
Ooh. That actually hit hard or hit home right there. Um, and one thing I'll say is, uh, you know, uh, when it came to after the military and trying to be a provider, trying to raise a family, trying to do all that kind of stuff, my work-life balance was not there. It was constantly trying to figure out. My mind was like you said, I was there, I was present, but I was always thinking about what do I have to do to be successful. Um, Big job, big responsibilities, and my mind could never just tune it out when I left work. Um, so it had a major impact, obviously, on my relationships. I think both. I know I could have been. I'm saying I was a bad father or a bad husband, but I know I could have been much better than I was. Um, and the other thing is, I didn't realize until I was forced to be by myself for a long time during the pandemic that I actually didn't like myself. Um, and I think part of that constant go, 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 keeping myself busy, part of that was because I didn't want to be by myself because I had to deal with the fact that I didn't like myself. So that was forced presence that I think has definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things ever since. I have different values now, and um, it's definitely changed the trajectory of my life.
I really appreciate you sharing that and letting us in there. And it's funny when you said you had to be present with yourself. And Jim, that's a great point that you brought up. And I appreciate you bringing that aspect up because it all starts internally, right? Regulation's the foundation. And for me, Sean, the pandemic actually gave me even more excuses because when people were losing their job, we were being forced to work more. I think the first 2 months of the pandemic, I probably worked a total of 50 to 58 days. and we just weren't going home because guys were getting sick, guys couldn't work, we were getting held over. It was insane. But it's funny you mentioned being present with yourself. As I remember, I tried to go on a retreat on my own and take a camper that goes in the back of your pickup, the sliding campers up in the mountains for a 3 day weekend. And that's when I realized that chaos is my friend and peace and quiet is my enemy. Um,
Yep.
I got sick, literally anxious, throwing up, nauseous, sick within the first 24 hours of being out there completely alone because my nervous system didn't know what to do. And that was a warning sign for me. And so I didn't stay. And then I tried it again a month later. And then I ended up having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. That's when I knew I needed help and needed to do some regulation because I couldn't be alone with myself. My thoughts are in peace and quiet. It was terrible. So I appreciate you sharing that. And Sarah, if you got something that you'd like to share, I'd like to hear it. Then I am going to have to step away, but I want you guys to continue the conversation. I really do. But I would like to hear something, Sarah, if you have anything you want to share.
This one I'm just listening. Nothing clear is really coming up for me right now, but I appreciate the conversation though. Maybe this is more with your jobs. Again, the difference, because I did not have this job. There's definitely different things that I've had to slow my mind down to, again, even, motherhood or, working on projects where you're gathering people. But what you're talking about, I think is different and definitely the call of the day today. So thank you though, Richard.
So I do want to leave you guys with two questions, almost like a barometer that I would like you to try several times a day. Even set an alarm on your phone, like every 3 hours, and think of these two questions when the alarm goes off. Am I fully present right now? What am I doing? Am I fully present? And maybe take that as a barometer to look at, have I been present today and what I'm doing? And then what story am I telling myself in this moment? Is it I'm not good enough? Is it I'm a loser? I'm not doing enough? Or is it I'm doing great? I'm fine? What is it? And am I safe in this moment? So, am I fully present right now? What story am I telling myself in this moment? And am I safe? And just do that check in a couple, 3, 4 times a day and see what it does for your nervous system. Again, guys, I hate to be brief this week. They dropped this ceremony that we're doing on us literally at 9 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to have to hop off and run out and go participate in the ceremony. Sean, it was great meeting you. Don't be a stranger. This is a great place for you to get through anything you need to work on. And Jim and Sarah, I just love you guys to death. And thanks for spending, a half hour, 45 minutes with me today. And we'll see you next month.
Sounds good. Thanks.